Welcome back, everybody, to day whatever it is, 3, 4 of Luke sort of being alive as he goes through the day's events. If you missed yesterday's show, I explained that we did a little trip to Colorado. And as we were heading out there, I got very, very ill. And so now we're here. What was supposed to be like a hybrid work/vacation getaway. And now I'm fighting off some health demons. And yesterday started the show with a little oxygen in. Today I think I can do it without any oxygen breaks, which is good. I got some medication, feeling a little bit better this morning. Thank you all so much for joining us live. If you are watching back, whenever and wherever you might be. Let's start today with Trump's latest cabinet meeting. As I was watching some of these clips, and this is not illness related, this was Trump induced related, I was nauseous. I was nauseous watching as he's like getting confused and distracted and telling random stories, and then his cabinet officials are sitting there pampering him. I know we've seen it before, but this one's particularly bad. Pampering him like he's a child. Have you had like a kid come up to you and be like, look, this is a pin, and I can use it like a wand, and you're like, yeah, awesome, great job being creative. You don't really know what they're saying, but you're sort of on board with at least their brains doing something because they're a kid. But that is literally what the President of the United States was being treated like in this presser during his cabinet meeting, and then we'll look at other clips that go a little bit off the rails.
See this pen right here? This pen is an interesting...
So he sort of halts the agenda items of this meeting to go on a 2-minute ramble about pens.
This pen right here, this pen is an interesting example. It's the same thing. So this pen is very inexpensive, but it writes well. I like it. But I can't have the pen the way it was. You know what it is. I don't want to give too much publicity, but they do treat me well. Sharpie.
Says Howard Lutnick. Is that really that funny?
So I came here, they have $1,000 pens. And you know, you hand pens out, you're signing and you hand them out, you're handing them to all these people. Sometimes you have 30, 40 people. And they were $1,000 a piece. Beautiful pen, ballpoint. 1,000, it was gold, silver, gorgeous. But I'm handing out to kids that don't even know what they're doing. What is this, Mommy? It's kids. They're getting a pen for $1,000. They have no idea what it is. And I feel guilty because I'm like, you know, I'm by nature, I don't, you know, it's the government. I love the government like I love myself economically. I want to save money. So I'm saying, this is crazy. And it had another problem. They didn't write well. So I take it out and I sign and there's no ink. And I got all you people looking and you say, there must be something wrong with Trump. And I'm signing and there's no ink in the pen and it costs $1,000. This one, I called the guy. I said, I'd like to use your pen, but I can't have a gray thing with a big S on it saying Sharpie. As I'm signing a $1 trillion airplane contract to buy brand new fighter jets, brand new B-2 bombers, of which we just ordered plenty. I can't do that with the press. Use your pen, but I like the pen the best, but I'll sign it. I could do like Biden did, you know? Give it to somebody else to sign, or an auto pen, or maybe sign it separately in another room, but I can't use your pen. He said, well, I can make it nicer. I said, what can you do? He said, I'll paint it black. I said, that's nice. And I can even paint the White House on it, sir, if you like, in gold. Almost real gold, not bad. And I can even do your signature, sir.
Through some of this, you can see Pete Hegseth is deeply confused about where this meeting has gone. We're talking about how Trump replaced the previous White House pins with Sharpies, but he didn't want the brand Sharpie on it, so they customized it. Who cares? Literally, who cares? Literally, who cares? And then you go, it's him talking about how he's saving money from the government. We're spending $1 billion or $2 billion a day on the war. You think $1,000 pins are making a difference? No. Trump has spiked our national debt with his policies. You think pins are making a difference because he gets slightly cheaper Sharpies instead of whatever the pins were they had before? What are we talking about?
And by the way, this was not staged. I just saw the pen sit there and I thought of this as an example.
An example of what? That you're saving money when you're wasting tons of money? Okay, so he does that whole thing, right? I'm sorry to subject you to that long of a clip, but that kind of happens. All of the press is silent. Like what? Just so you know, there's a room full of people. You might not have noticed that. All you heard was J.D. Vance and Howard Lutnick giggling. There's a whole room full of press and other cabinet officials, and everyone's kind of sitting there like, yeah, good job, Trump. You got a new, different pin. And then Trump goes, so with all that being said, now that we got that out of the way, that's going to be tough to follow. Scott Bessent. And then Bessent acts like Trump just said something so profound.
And I can hand them out, and actually they become hot as a pistol. So what can I tell you? And with that, could I give it to, please, a man who's done a great job at Treasury? Good luck, Scott.
Well, sir, as always, you're a tough act to follow, but that is very illustrative. Your economic leadership has made...
It's... I don't want to compare it to something because I feel like it's going to be insulting to whoever I bring up. I guess I'll go back to the child analogy. A kid, like I know one of my relatives, he's really young, and it's super cute. He'll be like, let me show you I can dance. And then he'll just jump and land on the floor. Jaden saw this when we visited them. He'll jump and he'll land on the floor over and over. That's the dance move. He'll go like this and jump and then just like essentially fall back on his back onto the floor. And he'll be like, that's my dance move. And like over and over. And it's so adorable. We all go, ah, yes, that's good job. Oh, do it again. Ah, yes. Now, if a full grown adult went, let me show you I have a dance move, and they just kept back flopping onto their back onto the floor, you'd go, what are you doing? But for a kid, it's cute. It's like that. Bessent goes, you're always a tough act to follow. He just ranted about pins for 2 minutes. What's tough to follow about that, sir? And Trump's like, good luck. And then watch. Oh, it's so cringy. This is so nauseating. This is the part that made me like, which is it really is that North Korean style dictator treatment where they all seem, I know this is not what's going to happen, but it seems as if they're all afraid that they're going to be if they don't laugh hard enough at Trump. Watch JD, Bessent, whoever's sitting there, like belly laughing at something that wasn't that funny.
Well, sir, as always, you're a tough act to follow, but that is very illustrative. Your economic leadership has...
It's illustrative. It's very illustrative, says Bessent, of his economic leadership. Republicans in general, and Trump for sure, are much worse on the issue of fiscal responsibility. A quarter, one more time, a quarter of all of America's national debt was accumulated under Trump's first and second term. And this is supposed to be illustrative, his Sharpie story of his economic literacy. Okay, then he gets asked by a reporter a very fair question. Is it not hypocritical that you rail against mail-in ballots? You say they're corrupt, you shouldn't vote by mail, and then you voted by mail. And Trump says, well, it's because I was busy. I thought I should stay in Washington. To which the reporter says, you were in Florida.
Tell me about mail-in ballots. Go ahead. You mean I used a mail-in ballot? You probably said, yeah, I did.
Why did you
know what? Because I'm president of the United States, and because of the fact that I'm president of the United States, I did a mail-in ballot for elections that took place in Florida, because I felt I should be here instead of being in the beautiful sunshine taking...
But you were in Palm Beach, sir, the last few weekends.
That's right. And I decided that I was going to vote by mail-in ballot because I couldn't be there, because I had a lot of different things. But, you know, we have exceptions for mail-in ballots. You do know that, right?
Okay, so he rails against mail-in ballots. Him and his entire family voted by mail. He says the reason is because I thought I should stay in Washington and not go down to Florida. To which the reporter says, you were just in Florida. And Trump goes, yeah, but I couldn't because I couldn't be there. But you were. What? I mean, it's with any person, if it weren't Trump and we were used to it, we'd be like, this is concerning. What's going on with his critical thinking skills? Is anything firing up here? And then he talks about Iran, of course, and he's doing this thing where he's like, Iran's desperate to make a deal, even though Iran's denying that, and is saying they'll keep going as long as it needs to go, whatever. And Trump's going, no, they're begging me to make a deal, and we're about to have a deal, but I also don't want a deal. I'm not desperate for a deal. We'll just have as long as we want, but also it'll be done short, but also it could be long.
And it would be nice if like the fake news New York Times, which writes so fake, and the Wall Street Journal is terrible, terrible. I mean, I read a story today that I'm desperate to make a deal. If I was desperate, he'd be the first to know. Pete, let's get the hell out of there. I'm the opposite of desperate. I don't care. I want to know. In fact, we have.
The president just said, I don't care about ending a war. I don't care about making a deal. Okay, Americans care. Americans care about seeing this war come to an end and the economic disruption and the lives that are being lost. So it's a little disturbing that you would say you don't care.
I want to know. In fact, we have other targets we want to hit before we leave. We're hitting them on a daily basis. No, I don't talk about you. I can't talk about specifics. A lot of people say that wouldn't matter. Maybe it does matter. Who knows? But I wouldn't talk. It's like the question this young lady asked. Sorry about I embarrassed her. I don't want to embarrass you because I think I think she's a friendly reporter, so I'm sorry. But I can't say what we're going to do because if I did, I wouldn't be sitting here for long.
Okay. He ultimately gets on to say that they'll, if he admitted what the plan was, oh my gosh, then they would use the 25th Amendment on him, but he forgets what the 25th Amendment is, which is kind of funny. We'll get to that in a second. But it's like, they would think I'm not mentally competent, and they'd use the, what the hell? It reminds me of in the interview when he says, my father, I don't have what he had. He struggled with, what's that thing? Alzheimer's, sir? Yes, Alzheimer's. But no one's asking, like, tell us the exact target you're going to strike. But it's perfectly reasonable to ask, what's the plan? And then Trump likes to use this cutesy response of, that's secret, to not lay out any clear objectives. He does say this.
Trillions over the years. I said, do you mind coming up and giving us a little hand with the streets? Send up some. They didn't want to get involved. And I believe that's going to cost them dearly. Thank you very much, everybody.
Come help us with the straights. I got the gays, but you help me with the straights. They're always a little more confusing. Less fun than the gays. Mr. Hormuz. if it was homosexual Hormuz, I'd have a much easier time with him. But this straight Hormuz, he's a tough one. Someone told me about a straight Hormuz. I said, oh no, not on fleek. I can't deal with this straight Hormuz. Talk to me when he sucked. So, talk to me whenever he deals with Hunter's Biden. Okay, so now with that all behind us, let's continue charging forward.
Which is shocking.
The Rethinking safe enough to leave the region because Steve said that they've got enough uranium to make 11 bombs. That's a very scary thing. So,
well, it's again, I can't talk to you about that. You're asking me a question. You're essentially saying, will I go in and do something? I can't talk to you about that.
You're looking at a coalition of ships to help, warships to help protect tankers. How close are you to getting that coalition?
Well, we have a coalition for them, but they should have been up here a long time ago. And they're affected. The amazing thing is we don't need the Hormuz Strait. We don't need it. We don't need it at all. We have so much oil. Our country is not.
So then why are prices here skyrocketing if that were true? He likes to repeat that. Yes, we produce tons of oil domestically. And if you have a basic understanding of the global oil market, you'll understand disruption globally does impact us. Obviously, we're witnessing that. So if it were the case that this doesn't impact us at all, then why is it impacting us? It's like a weird, we don't really have to argue because it's happening in front of everyone. The impact of this war. I don't have to explain to you that Trump's wrong because you're witnessing it. This was the part where he says if he started giving out plans about what the goal is here or what might come next, then his cabinet would use the 25th Amendment on him. But he forgets what it's called.
Question this young lady asked. Sorry about I embarrassed her. I don't want to embarrass you because I think she's a friendly reporter, so I'm sorry. But I can't say what we're going to do because if I did, I wouldn't be sitting here for long. They'd probably, what is it called, the 25th Amendment? They'd institute the 25th Amendment, which they didn't do with Biden, which is shocking.
What is Howard even there for? I know he's the Commerce Secretary, but it just feels like they put him in there to be a laugh track. Then you would use the 25th Amendment on me. It's like so forced. I get that people love power and they love, I'm the commerce secretary, I'm the war secretary, but there has to be on some human personal level a degree of degradation to your dignity that you can only handle for so long. And I don't care if I was sitting with the president, I still would not want to be on camera being that cringy, cheering him on like a little kid. Then Doug Burgum, who apparently still exists, he is the Secretary of the Interior, I think it is, and he's talking about how in Venezuela, the people love so much what Trump did with Maduro that they're going to build a statue to him. And then Burgum goes on to discuss other more pressing matters, and Trump cuts him off to say, wait, tell me more about the statue.
Production on oil production is climbing towards 50% increase just in the 3 months we've been here. That flows to American refineries on the Gulf Coast, lowering the price of gas in America. So it's a...
Forget that. When are they going to do the statue? The hell with you.
So he's talking about addressing the once-in-a-lifetime unprecedented disruption to energy. And Trump cuts him off and goes, but tell me more about the statue. When are they going to do the statue for me? Which tells you a lot about Trump's mindset. We have a lot more to talk about today, but let's get through this cabinet meeting and then we'll get into other things. Here's Trump saying this.
Make a deal. The reason they want to make a deal is they have been just beat to shit.
So the
Are you thinking of taking
Okay. Beat to shit. Next question. There is that. Then Trump got a little bit discombobulated. Speaking of the 25th Amendment, of course, I tripped up on it.
And I think we've been proven right. You know, they took one missile, went 2,500 miles. They supposedly didn't have a missile like that. They had no missile with that capability. But they shot the now famous Ireland, the island that the
Okay. And then Pete Hegseth, you know, everyone doesn't want to believe, right? Everyone is hoping this is not going to be another Iraq. A long, drawn-out war, hundreds of thousands of lives, trillions of dollars, and you come to the end of it and you say, what exactly did we accomplish? And Pete Hegseth, who's supposed to be convincing us that's not going to be what this is, references Iraq in saying, you know, I know how to handle this.
This actually isn't something new to me. I may be a young guy, Mr. President, but I'm not a rookie in this realm. In 2007, I helped lead the surge, the public fight for the Iraq surge. Stood and watched people stand in the Senate and declare the war is lost before it even started. Who was that? It was Harry Reid. That was the Democrats and the media working hand in glove. Back then it was 3 years into a war. Now we're 3 weeks into an operation.
Wait, are you citing the concerns with Iraq as justification for why we shouldn't be concerned here? Because weren't those people vindicated? The people that you're saying were ridiculous and you lived through it for sounding the alarm about Iraq, you're saying those people were irrational? No, they were vindicated. So you're kind of demonstrating our point. And then Trump once again demonstrates that as he entered into this war, he clearly was not prepared for what the response from Iran would be, despite him trying to argue that he was prepared for everything. He seems to be confused, despite this being obviously what Iran was going to do, that upon us starting a war with them, they would strike our allies in the region.
they've been 100%. Now, in all fairness, you know, they could have gone the other way. They were surprisingly missiled. They were shot at. Nobody ever thought they'd be shot at. UAE had 1,400 missiles aimed at them. Fortunately, they had the greatest anti-missile weapon in history, called the Patriot.
So he's saying everyone was shocked by that. That should have been your expectation. The fact that you didn't plan for that concerns me a lot. And some would call you for that admission a stupid president. I'm not saying that. I mean, obviously I am, but... And apparently you don't want us to have stupid presidents.
Of the running. I think that statement, that interview, he admitted that he's a stupid person. I don't want a stupid person being president. You know, I'll say it right now.
Okay, so this is him referencing Gavin Newsom and Newsom talking about his dyslexia And now Trump's attacking. What did we see? 20%? Was it 20% of the country has dyslexia or something like 15 to 20%? A huge chunk of the country calling them stupid. But whenever you watch a comparison of Newsom talking about any issue and Trump talking about any issue, it's very clear who has the intellectual difficulties. And that's, of course, Donald Trump, despite him insisting this.
Just never reports it. I'm the only president that ever took a cognitive test.
I can't. You know what? I'm not even playing it. I can't even hear that again. He said it gets very difficult. We've heard it so many times. And then, as we've seen many times, Hegseth went a little too long and Trump was getting tired.
We're here to win, and we're full speed ahead. So, Steve, we appreciate your efforts. We are here to win.
Okay. So he's very sleepy there. These cabinet meetings. Wow. At least I have an excuse. I'm sick and I can't sleep because I can't breathe, okay? Hegseth was tripping up in his own words. He doesn't have that excuse. Maybe he does, actually. He's at a war. But they're getting worse. They're getting worse and more cringy. And the worse that things get externally politically for Trump, the more backlash, the less popular he is, the more the people around him are going to have to just salivate over him so that he doesn't melt down. All right, before we get into our next story, and it's an interesting one, have you ever heard of someone getting lovingly pulverized? That's what we're going to talk about. Love being used like a jackhammer. Someone getting smacked across the face with a big bunch of love. What? It's very interesting. YouTube titles are like, this Democrat destroys this Republican. That's going to be this. Talarico destroys with love. Pete Hegseth's pastor. But first, Katuka? I don't know exactly how that's supposed to be read out, but thank you for the super chat saying you and the boys going to No Kings Denver on Saturday. I don't know. Maybe. You just never know where we're going to pop up. Head Haunted became a member by clicking the join button on YouTube. If you're on any other platform, like a podcasting platform, and you want to get an extra show every day, the bonus show that's completely unhinged and awesome, you can go over to YouTube, find that join button on the homepage or under any video that you're watching and click it, get a membership and get the bonus show. Dark Sunray has been a member for 22 months, and thank you for being as committed to us as we are to you. Oh, that's so sweet. Hope you feel better every day. We got to get you a special Sharpie to sign things. You deserve it. Thank you. Yeah, guys, I woke up this morning and was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. Because while I still don't feel good, the pain I was feeling yesterday after I started antibiotics had really subsided. And now I just feel normally ill. Not like I'm panicking level ill. Carl A. Reasoner said, so sick of hearing from this sorry sack of S administration. Yep. I guess I agree fully and completely. You have my complete and total endorsement. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Let's talk about this now. Hegseth has some weird spiritual advisors around him, Christian nationalists, and what is really tripping them up, some of these Christian nationalists, is seeing a Christian progressive use love and his understanding of the Bible to intellectually jujitsu, to Jesus jujitsu these Christian nationalists. It's driving them crazy. And so you're seeing on screen here on the left, you have a spiritual advisor, pastor associated with Pete Hegseth. And he went on a podcast and endorsed the idea of the death of James Talarico. And I'm going to play that clip for you. And then I'm going to show you James Talarico's response. It's going to shock you, okay? And it really speaks to James Talarico's character. So let me just give you, I didn't know who this guy was before. Evangelical pastor Brooks Pottiger, who served as a close spiritual advisor to Hegseth. We'll just call him Brooks Pot, okay? Lambasted the Democratic Presbyterian seminarian for his interpretation of the Bible and defense of transgender minors during a recent podcast interview. So James Talarico is the Democratic Senate nominee in Texas. There's a lot of fear in MAGA world because there seems to be a movement developing around him in the way that he speaks, not just about issues in general and healthcare and wages and reining in the power of billionaires, but then how he connects it for a very Christian audience of people in Texas to his religion being Christianity, but a progressive interpretation, which if you at least examine as Jesus is described, seems to fit a lot better with progressive values than the evangelical version of it. And so Talarico's getting a lot of momentum, and in Texas, for it even to be a possibility for a Senate candidate to win statewide in Texas is pretty shocking. And that's causing people like this guy. And then the guy on the right, didn't we meet this guy at the bar fight? So he's kind of insane as well. And I say that, of course, with love. You're deranged, lovingly. So first, let's hear what this pastor had to say about Talarico. Then we'll look at Talarico's response.
We're talking about that. And so I say, even in the debate, I think you might have seen it, but that I had on campus the other day, I pray that God kills him. Ultimately, that means killing his heart and raising him up to new life in Christ. That's the first thing.
We want him crucified with Christ.
That's exactly right.
I want him to be, I think, Saul of Tarsus, Talarico of Tarsus.
Yes,
That's what I want. Who would say, I was holding the garments while they stoned Stephen, and now I'm that's what we want.
Yes, we want death and new life, right? And if it would not be within God's will to do so, stop him by any means necessary, oh God.
So they think they're being like cute and smart and like using a loophole and have plausible deniability by going, yes, kill him and then give him new life. But that language is a threat. That is very dangerous. If you tell radical people that you're calling for God to kill a Democratic candidate, that is as direct of a public death threat as you can make, even if you try to cloak it in, and then he will be with Jesus or whatever the heck he was trying to say. And so before I show you some clips of why I think Talarico is freaking out Trump and MAGA so much, let me show you Talarico's response, okay? Texas Senate candidate James Talarico responded with love after Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth suggested he should be crucified. Jesus loves, says Talarico. Christian nationalism kills. You may pray for my death, Pastor, but I still love you. I love you more than you could ever hate me. That could get me a little bit choked up. Yeah. So we don't have Cole here in Colorado, so Jaden's trying to like do a little duct tape together soundboard, and it's not going well so far. And so for that to be, what do they want when they say that? Why did that one guy who posed the question to the Hegseth dude, why did he say that originally? To get the controversy, to try to get Talarico to respond, and then it becomes a tit for tat, and then you're getting attention, and Talarico attacked me. But what do you do when you just said something so dangerous and hateful, and the response is, I love you more than you could ever hate me? Wow. That is a curb stomp with love, okay? He just took out your jugular lovingly, okay? Does that make sense? You hear me? Now, Trump, of course, has been attacking Talarico as well. It's really funny because Talarico, he has like some past tweets that were a little like, oh, that was a little weird. But for the most part, it's going to be very difficult for them to characterize him as some radical left lunatic. But they're trying. Here was Trump in a recent phone interview.
The Texas election, you said you're going to make a choice on what Republican should really get the nomination. Right. Is it going to be Cornyn or is it going to be Paxson? What do you think?
Well, let me tell you the good news. The good news is their candidate is whacked out with his 6 different forms of gender and all the things that I saw. The insult to Jesus. I mean, such an insult. This guy is whacked out. And you know, it's very interesting.
He's binary? Who? Oh my gosh, kill me. Oh my gosh, I just understood what just happened. Okay, a couple things, I'll play the rest of this clip that's so dumb. First of all, Trump does not get to speak on insulting Jesus. Trump does not get to speak about a politician using a political message in a way that someone interprets as insulting. Now, I'll show you what Talarico's Jesus message is connecting to his liberal policies. I think it makes a heck of a lot of sense if you read the parts of the Bible that have Jesus in them, but Trump's the last person who gets to talk about whether or not a politician's insulting Jesus, okay? He has been the most insulting human being. If you feel this, if you are bought into this, if you're invested in whether or not a politician's being insulting to Jesus, Trump's the biggest insulter ever with the way he's tried to exploit Christianity for his own benefit when he doesn't worship anything other than himself. But then let me hear this part where Kilmeade tries to back up Trump.
I mean, such an insult. This guy is
binary.
Oh my gosh. Oh, it's so good. Okay, so what this is referencing is Talarico in some remark one time talked about how God is not gendered. God is non-binary. Now, because non-binary has become at the center of a culture war debate, people hear that and go, oh, he's saying that he's trans, God's trans, Obviously, tons of very biblically minded, even traditional thinkers have examined how the being of God, if you believe in the being of God, is not like a dude with a beard, okay? It's a non-gendered supernatural force. If your religion... I love the idea of someone's spirituality being necessarily connected to the genitalia of their God. Obviously, God is like a force beyond humanity if you believe in it. Not a dude, okay? So that was all Talarico's point. There's something profound about how we're all created in his image. And so that's man, that's women, that's everyone. It's not a gender. And instead of saying non-binary, which is what Talarico said, you just have Twitter talking points like loose change in your grandpa's pocket banging around in Kilmeade's head, and he's like, he said God's binary. No, God being binary would be what you're saying he is. Non-binary. Okay.
Insult. This guy
is binary.
Like that. And it's very interesting. They had no fear of her because she's a low IQ individual, but they really waited. The Republicans waited. They really wanted to run against him because they had these things, and nobody knew they had them, and all this bad stuff came out about him.
It's almost nothing bad has come out. Almost nothing. Maybe nothing. The worst you got was him getting a little high on the 2020 supply. That's all it was, right? We were all examining the racial injustices, which was a great cause, but then we hadn't yet exactly landed on what the perfect language was. So some people got a little weird with being being white means you're spreading a disease of racism. Blah, blah, blah. Obviously, that's a dumb way to communicate a point about not being racist. Of course, that just means you're being racist to a white to be not racist. No, that's not logical. But that's the one thing they dug up. Okay, yeah, you remember 2020? We were all trying to figure out what a crazy time and these horrible injustices happened, and how do we talk about this in a way that sounds reasonable to your average Joe? Okay. You don't have some huge oppo research on him. And instead, here is Talarico responding to Trump saying that Talarico insults Jesus.
The President of the United States just said that I insulted Jesus. You want to know what insults Jesus?
Tell me.
Kicking the sick off their health care while cutting taxes for billionaires. You know what insults Jesus? Deporting the stranger and separating babies from their mothers. You know what insults Jesus? Bombing innocent school children in Iran and sending our brave men and women off to die in another forever war. You know what insults Jesus? Covering up the Epstein files and then refusing to prosecute a single person in them. I am not a perfect Christian. I don't claim to be. There's only been one perfect Christian, and he was crucified.
And his name is Trump. Trump's he's about to say me.
There's only been one perfect Christian, and he was crucified on a cross 2,000 years ago. Jesus told us, he told us to love our neighbors as ourselves. He told us on earth as it is in heaven. Can we imagine war in heaven? Can we imagine bigotry in heaven? Can we imagine poverty in heaven? Then why do we tolerate these things on earth?
Ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So whether or not you are a Christian or believe his belief systems, you understand that's a message that right-wing Christians, who I think often are very exploitative of their own religion for the sake of their politics in kind of disingenuous ways are going to have a tough time going after. It's like, in The Office when Kelly is dating Daryl and Kelly is like, Daryl has done something no guy has ever done to me, and it's so manipulative. He'll just tell me exactly what he thinks. What kind of sick game is that? It's like that in a weird way where the right-wing people are like, all right, Talarico, you sick MFer, what are you going to say? Oh, you think you're Christian, but you think you can be liberal and Christian? It's like, yeah, so I think that what I remember in Bible school is Jesus loved the neighbor and tried to heal the sick and spoke out against people hoarding their wealth and, really tried to uplift the foreigner, and the outcast was someone he loved. And they're like, oh, yo, you should die, okay? And he's like, hey, I love you. And they're like, you are sick and you're blasphemous. Hey, man, I love you. I love you even when you say that. You're a dangerous man, James. By the way, speaking of billionaire influence, look at this breakdown of billionaire political spending by party. I think this is going into the 2026 midterms. Look, almost 80% for Republicans. So that should tell you a little bit about which party's probably more likely to rein in the power of the billionaires. Are they perfect? Are they perfect? No. Are they also far too beholden to big money? Yes. But the money don't lie. And clearly, the disproportionate donations for billionaires to Republicans is because even if it means authoritarianism, they'd rather authoritarianism, but they get to keep more of their money. Okay? That's the case. And that has to be called out. And like he said, if you do believe in Jesus, or if you try to proclaim to believe in those teachings, as so many Republicans do, but you don't understand that ripping away people's health care for the sake of those billionaires is very much against that teaching, then I don't know what you're doing with yourself. I really don't. Amanda QRT, thank you so much for becoming a member by clicking the join button. Maddie McKinley said, so glad to see, feeling a bit better. Been watching for months and blessed to have joined yesterday. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much, Maddie. I appreciate that. And then CK Tulka said, find Dirty Mouth Soap Co. and I'll hook you guys up with some free handmade soaps. Your language should be offensive, not your odor. Wow. Thank you. I appreciate that. Before we get into our next story, I want to remind you, in the link in the description of the video you're watching or the podcast you're listening to, or in the description, there's a link that will take you to this site, Miracle Foundation, my mom's organization. She spent years dedicating her life to uplifting children globally, vulnerable children globally. Domestically focused on the foster care system, and we're doing a little fundraising effort through the end of this month to raise money to assist in bringing, which is what the Miracle Foundation does, the resources and tools and access to foster care kids and their families to allow them to cultivate a forever family, right? So often these families would love to be that beautiful structure around kids and love them, but there's so much they need in terms of assistance to make that happen. And if you provide that, which your money, your dollars go directly to doing, then they're able to stay with those families instead of what happens for so many foster care kids, which is they have to be moved from one family to another. And there's all these destructive effects of that impact their entire life and then our society at large. And we can make such a huge and profound difference if just this audience right here chips in what you can by going to the link in the description of this video, donating what you can, whatever dollar amount, $50, $100, or whatever, to this cause to make sure that children in foster care families have the resources they need to have educational success and all around, specifically, a loving and supportive family, which is actually a lot of work, and that's what the Miracle Foundation tries to step in to help with. Link in the description. Please go donate what you can. I'd appreciate it greatly. We're going to do this through the rest of the month. One other comment, then we'll get back to the stories. Kendall, not Jenner, said member for 3 months, or has been a member for 3 months, and said, I hope you're feeling better, Pookie. As you can tell, I haven't coughed yet. My nose, I did all the little things right before to try to not have it running, and I feel not too shabby compared to yesterday. Definitely not 100%, but compared to yesterday where we literally had to end the show because I was struggling to talk. I've learned that breathing sometimes can be hard when your nose won't allow you to breathe and you have to talk at the same time. And I was lightheaded by the end because I'm trying to breathe out of my mouth and speak out of my mouth at the same time. Very tough. I've learned. All right, let's jump into this. We all know that Lindsey Graham has a deep, dark, dirty secret. And his Senate opposition, his opponent, Dr. Annie Andrews, put out an ad that exposes that secret in her campaign against Lindsey Graham. She would be a much better senator than Lindsey Graham, of course. And let me play this ad for you. I think it was brilliantly put together. Here we go. Dr. Annie Andrews.
We've all heard the rumors about Lindsey Graham, the whispers that circulate around Washington, D.C. and South Carolina. But he has a secret, a part of him that he wants to keep hidden. And then after all these years, he just comes out and says it.
The Iranian regime is on its knees. We're going to blow the hell out of these people.
Lindsey Graham is deeply and passionately in love with war.
We're marching through the world. Iran is going down.
Meanwhile, back in South Carolina, our infrastructure, our roads and bridges are crumbling. Our rural hospitals are closing. Our schools are underfunded and everything costs a fortune. And while South Carolina's kids fall further behind, Lindsey Graham says this.
I go back to South Carolina, I'm asking them to send their sons and daughters over to the Mideast.
And I don't know if you're a history buff, but Lindsey has always been this way.
I believe that Saddam Hussein is giving aid and comfort, training and assistance to al-Qaeda murderers, that he has weapons of mass destruction. He is lying when he says he doesn't.
I'm Dr. Annie Andrews. I'll show up for you. I'll fight for you. And if you send me to the U.S. Senate, I'll focus on issues that actually affect us here in South Carolina.
Go back to South Carolina, I'm asking them to send their sons and daughters over to the Mideast. Make Iran great.
Not send our kids to fight endless forever wars overseas. Learn more at Dr. Annie Andrews.
So I don't frequently just play ads for you, but that one is brilliant because in this world of social media virality driving so much of our discourse, you got to get something that hooks a viewer, right? And what hooks you more than Lindsey Graham has a secret? You're like, oh, here we go. And then she's like, and he's just come out and said it. And you're like, don't do it, Annie. Don't you do it, Doc Annie. Don't say it. Don't do it to us. Come on. And you're half expecting it to cut to one of those like blurred faces and distorted voices. And it's like, yes, I'm a DC area male prostitute and I have seen Lindsey, I don't need to get more descriptive than that. You don't need it. You get it, right? And you're like, okay, but that would be kind of like a weird thing to attack him on. Because, yeah, I get that he's hypocritical because he's a Republican, anti-gay, and he probably is gay in his private life. But, like, that doesn't feel substantive, and that's not really... But it hooked you, and then she's like, the secret is he loves war. And I like this campaign slogan. Let's stop talking about is Lindsey Graham gay? Because so what if he is? So what if he isn't? Yes, there's the normal Republican hypocrisy that's important to call out, but like I'm a little annoyed with this. Oh, let's focus so much on all these Republican hypocrites and how they're sometimes gay in their private life. But instead, make it about how gay for war he is. I'm Dr. Annie Andrews. Lindsey Graham is gay for war. Lindsey Graham has a problem with lust after bombs being dropped. Yeah. The next ad could be, we just uncovered the porn search history of Lindsey Graham. And then it's just those bomb, like missile strikes videos that they're showing to Trump. That's what the focus needs to be, because almost no one, Republican, Democrat, Independent, is comfortable with how comfortable Lindsey Graham is with war. It's not that you can't imagine very justified uses of the U.S.'s military power. Of course, there are instances where we have to use it. I've made my principled case, an ideological case for why I don't think we should be in this Iran war. But you could even make, and I've heard some people do it, what you believe to be a rational case for why we had to do this war. I disagree. I wouldn't agree that it's rational, but I also wouldn't think that you're like salivating for bombs to drop. You would be like, it's grave, it's serious, but we have to do it. But when Lindsey talks about war, it's weird and creepy. So then I want to bring you to even Nancy Mace, who is a deeply whacked Republican congresswoman. But even she is like, someone needs to get Lindsey Graham out of the Oval Office. Now, while it's interesting to see the salivation for war of Lindsey Graham being so off-putting to people across the political spectrum that even elected Republicans are calling him out for being so close to Trump, can we please stop making this we need to get Lindsey away from Trump, he's manipulating him? What if Trump agrees with Lindsey? What if Trump's hyped for war too? They all are comfortable calling out Lindsey Graham, but not the person who's actually making the decisions, which is Trump.
But the president saying and suggesting consistently that this is a short-term endeavor. Mm-hmm. He has used various words to convey that this is not a long-term war or a conflict. Based on the briefing you received today, do you think that lines up with the reality?
I think that he's been right so far, 100% right. He has executed this war perfectly, in my opinion, so far.
We bombed a girls' school. How can you say we've executed this war perfectly when we blew up dozens of children? That doesn't even make any sense. This is nothing about questioning the power of our incredible soldiers and our military and how we can be effective in taking out whoever. And we blew up a school. You can't then ever say we did this 100% perfectly. That's insane. But sorry, keep going.
Or perfectly, in my opinion, so far. What I am concerned about is the Washington war machine. Doing what
you say that's Lindsey Graham.
I take that as Senator Graham, the senior senator from South Carolina. I take that as the military-industrial complex. I take that as a guy that is going back to my home state of South Carolina, telling mothers and fathers to send their children into war to take an island over oil. And I am vehemently opposed to that.
I want to play so everyone's on the same page, hearing what you're talking about in reference to Senator Lindsey Graham, what he had to say. Let me play that.
So here's what I tell President Trump. Keep it up for a few more weeks. Take Carg Island, where all of the resources they have to produce oil. Control that island. Let this regime die on a vine. We got 2 Marine expeditionary units sailing to this island. We did Iwo Jima. We can do this.
I know you take issue with several points he's raised, including Iwo Jima and the loss of American lives there, and the
7,000 or died on the black sands of Iwo Jima.
So explain your opposition to his statement.
He'll do this, by the way, Lindsey Graham. He'll be like, we did Nagasaki. You're like, what are you talking about? He'll just start throwing out all these references. Look at what we did to Nazi Germany. And you're like, do you even know what the context is for what you're talking about? And the human toll of what you're talking about?
It's about Carg Island, or the idea of allowing the regime to die on a vine.
I want President Trump to take Lindsey Graham out of the Situation Room.
Is he advising the president?
He brags about it, and I don't think Lindsey Graham, for all of that hubris, has thought through or war-gamed the consequences.
Okay, so I can't take you seriously because you just said we've done this war perfectly, which is, of course, ludicrous. I agree Lindsey Graham should be taken out of the Oval Office, but why is he not? Which all of these... okay. We just talked about James Talarico using love to combat these people. So let me try. Because those who seem, with love, to be big, massive losers... No, I'm kidding. The cowardice of people like Nancy Mace, with love, to not call out Trump. Yes, call out Netanyahu, visiting the White House over and over, almost certainly begging Trump to do this. Yes, call out Lindsey Graham for being orgasmic about bombs dropping and his Iwo Jima reference. Call him out, yes. But who's actually making the decisions? Trump is. And the Nancy Maces of the world. And a lot of these podcasters. I just saw Megyn Kelly was like, wait. We of course have to still vote for Republicans all the time. And you're like, what's all your messaging for then, Megyn? You're cowards if you won't call out the guy who's actually making the decisions here. Okay. Then you have Another Republican Congresswoman, Kat Kamek.
Congresswoman, do you agree with President Trump that we've won in Iran, sort of mission accomplished?
I haven't heard that yet.
Oh, okay. And another question I've been asking, just do you think that Lindsey Graham should continue to have such a prominent role in the execution of the war?
I absolutely think he should have his Oval Office credentials revoked.
Okay, and another question. What do you think it says about Trump's judgment that he's taking the counsel so much of Lindsey Graham? Thank you. Oh, thank you. Can someone ask that question? Oh, these hosts are like, yes, tell us more about how Lindsey Graham's terrible. We get it. I'm with you. Yes. And it's creepy, too. I get how creepy his whole vibe is when it comes to talking about war. Make Iran great again. Make Cuba great again. Let's go and take whatever. Creepy. Weird. Lustful. It's all strange. I get it. But does it say anything about Trump's judgment that Lindsey is so close to him on this? No, everyone's too afraid to call that out. All right. I know, guys, just so you know, people are doing the get a haircut. I got it. I know. I just don't want to be spewing illness all over a barber. I'm going to wait till I get better and then I'll get a haircut, I promise. I know it's getting a little droopy. I get it. Let's talk about this. A while ago now, I for some reason had a lot of fun talking about the story of Newsom having a little text leak situation about how he responded to Kamala Harris, and she revealed this in her book 107 Days, calling her, Kamala Harris calling him, Newsom, asking for his support after Biden dropped off the ticket. So remember that saga. This is the first time I've seen, at least in a while, that Newsom has addressed what felt like a shot that was taken at him by Kamala Harris. And the reason this is all kind of relevant is we're starting to see the seeds being planted for the Democratic primary, where once allies, at least for that primary season, are going to have to be opponents. And so in their books, Shapiro's doing this, Harris is doing it, less so Newsom, but maybe I missed something. They're kind of starting to take their little shots. Buttigieg has done it to a couple of the people. And I want to play for you Newsom explaining his side of that story. But first, let me explain the context. Here was the original story from Kamala Harris's book. Harris says Newsom avoided her call after Biden dropped out of the race for president. So you remember, Biden decides dropping off the ticket. Kamala says, I'm going to be the nominee. She starts calling a bunch of people trying to get support for her so that there won't be like a big competition and everyone will just rally around her before the convention. And she calls Newsom. I was one of the people on her list. He responds in the text that was revealed in this book, saying, hiking will call back. And then Kamala Harris wrote in her book, he never did. So that was taken as a shot at Newsom, right? Newsom had spent the previous year publicly supporting Biden, but also building his national brand in moves that suggested White House ambitions. So then I'll show you what Newsom had to say in reaction to that, because the Axios interviewer was like, do you and Kamala have beef? Kind of referencing that quote.
So former Vice President Kamala Harris, why don't you guys like each other?
It's a preposterous premise of the question, because we absolutely do.
Well, she took a shot at you in her book. You didn't speak at her convention. I mean, we can even go back to the San Francisco days with her and Guilfoyle. I mean, there seems to be something there.
No, quite the contrary. I introduced her at the convention. It was even more personal. I actually was the one that got enough votes that gave her the nomination, and I had the privilege of speaking in front of the convention. So it was the ultimate affirmation of that relationship.
BFFs.
That goes back 20 plus years, goes back before we were both in politics, when we spent time together, been on vacations with mutual friends out of the country together. So I've known her for years and years, and all these kind of carnations. I just think we've always been on the same ballot. Mm-hmm. When I got sworn in as mayor, I write about it in the book, walked across the street, swore in as district attorney. Obviously, she made her way to the state. I made my way to the state shortly thereafter. And so I've always had a relationship in that respect, but I also have known my relationship to that relationship, that when she goes first. And I've always understood that, and that's wonderful. And I think the press and pundits want to make something of that, and so they try to color it in. She gave me a little shot as it relates to the actual truth of the walk I was on, and I remember texting her back. I said, "Come on, I've already put out a statement."
Okay, before we show this part, for some reason I said before, if I find it all this seems like not that big of a deal. It's going to be fascinating to see how these tensions rise. Because you remember, the 2020 Democratic primary got heated between the candidates. Kamala and Biden. Kamala ended up being Biden's vice president, obviously, but like they had sort of insinuations of Biden being racist coming from Kamala about the busing issue, and Biden being like, oh, that part where she says, I was that girl. And then he's like, oh. It's such a iconic moment. Bernie being Warren going up to Bernie being like, I think you accused me of lying on national television, and Bernie's like, let's talk about this later, Elizabeth. Buttigieg, clashing with Klobuchar being like, are you calling me stupid? To Buttigieg, and Buttigieg being like, no, but like, you didn't know the name of the Mexican president, and Klobuchar being like, I do know the name, and then looking at that, it got all totally chaotic. And then what's his face, Bloomberg was on that stage, and everyone's like, everyone for one debate teamed up just to like kick Bloomberg off the stage. Bloomberg's like, can I just buy a Democratic primary? And through the funding of the election. And then, they're like, wow, you have all these NDAs, release them from the NDAs. And Biden jumps up there. He's like, yeah, Jack, if you're going to die, release them from the NDAs. And Bloomberg's like, hey, man, what the hell? Whoever that other person was, Gabbard was on that stage. This is a blast from the past. So I'm curious what this primary is going to look like. But if it's just over stuff like, Shapiro, I saw one little accusation against him that he claimed he didn't read off of a speech at his speech in Pennsylvania for Kamala during her presidential campaign. But then it's obvious he did read off the speech. Okay, stuff like that. Or he was already thinking about the art that he was going to have in the vice presidential residence, and that was off-putting to Kamala. Or Newsom. Biden just dropped off the ticket. It's like this national moment, and Kamala's trying to garner support to be the nominee. And Newsom's like, I'm on a hike, dude. Dude, I'm on a hike. I gotta have my Zen time. That feels like such a Newsom move. Once a week, I do a hike. I'm off the phone. Hiking, call you later. We're just going to have to see. Okay, here's the rest of his response.
Of the walk I was on, and I remember texting her back. I said, Kamala, I've already put out a statement supporting you. They're the last person you need to talk to. But for whatever reason, she added that in. I think it created some color for the book. It certainly helped her book sales. Not my component part, but that book is done unbelievably well.
Did you read it?
I did not fully read it. I've got it. I've read excerpts. I admit, Kamala, I have not fully absorbed the book. I should, but I was more focused on getting mine out.
Yes, they all have their books. It's so fun. It is funny how like the build-up to a presidential campaign is the dumbest series of lies you have to tell. Every politician gets asked, and obviously Newsom does it pretty well. Kamala's was okay. Buttigieg is they all are actually doing all right, being like, I don't know, maybe. Newsom goes, I'm gonna have to talk to my family. Kamala Harris says, I haven't decided yet. Buttigieg may be something similar. That's a better answer than JD Vance when he gets asked and he's like, ha 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 ha. I'm just gonna focus on doing the job I'm doing now. Thank you for asking. It's like, oh my gosh, we know that's what you want, but okay, act like you've never thought of it. Wait, me? Sure. But they all kind of have to do that thing. And you're like, wait, you're traveling to battleground states. You're going to Iowa. You're selling a book about how great you are. And that's just for fun? No, you're running for president. We know. But then they have to, and then they're like, I'm launching an exploratory committee to decide if I should run for president. You've already decided. Cut it out. Cut it out, you. We don't need this whole dog and pony show. We don't need it. Okay. I am really struggling. And I think I can power through. So, can I? Let me read a comment. Keith Peavyhouse said, I thought that Freedom's new scum was mentally challenged with a learning inability, according to the almighty orange guy. Guys, we got to end the show. I'm so sorry.
Real quick, the polls are in on the haircut. 55% say no, 45% say yes.
Good to know. So sorry, everyone. The sickness has got top me. Coughing fit. Thank you so much for watching and listening to today's show. This is Life. Much love. Talk to you next time.